Hello everybody! Hello. So, today I'm reviewing a bit more of a fun book and I'm going to keep it really short because it's just a fun book and very relevant to Bushcraft 007 that I just did. Got it wrong on that video. I've done 7 trips. Previously I did 6. I thought I'd only done 5. So this is a really relevant book. It's very fun. It's a quick read. And it's got some fantastic tips in it, which is, what is it? 301 camping hacks, tips and tricks you need to know so you don't die in the woods. How to have lots of fun and not get eaten by bears. So I thought that was a good break from everything else I've been reviewing. It is by Elsa Barnes. And it is a very quick read. I don't know anything about the author. I think it's a self-published manual kind of thing. And it literally is 301 camping tricks, of which I'm going to randomly pick ones that stay in my mind after reading it through a couple of times. So, this is a really good book. I just think it's designed more for people. It's definitely aimed at an American audience, or people in the Northern America, in North America, where it's part of their culture to go out into the national parks with their camper vans and their 4x4s and massive tents and all the camping paraphernalia, and have big family trips out into the wilderness. But there are some tips for things like going walking treks, you know, going camping in the Lake District, for example, and say in the United Kingdom. So there are some very good points which I'm going to pick some in the top of my head. But bear in mind that it is mainly aimed, I believe it's mainly aimed at driving to your location. Now, a lot of YouTubers that do these bushcraft videos and camping videos, they drive to their location and then they literally get out of the car, they walk to the campsite, and sometimes they might take cast iron pans and things like that. Now, they're very successful videos, but at the moment I'm more interested in walking some quite a distance to where you go camping, setting up camp, learning bushcraft skills, and not necessarily trying to take loads of kit with you and, you know, make a modern day camping video as such. I'm trying to learn how to get good at the ancient skills that we would have used, well, our ancestors would have used, should I say. So let's have a look. One of the first tips that comes into mind is tarps. Tarps are amazing. You know, tarps are amazing things. But the main one within this is using a tarp as a work area. When you have a tent, put a tarp on the outside, on the front door of your tent, or even further away, and making an area where you can prepare food so you're not stuck in your tent in the rain. So tarps are a fantastic idea. The tip in the book for that is to take loads of different tarps. Put a tarp under your tent, put a tarp over your tent, have a tarp as an emergency for your tent if it's leaking, so you can put an extra cover. Personally, I think that's a really good idea. If you buy a cheap tent, also buy a cheap tarp that you can put a ridge line over if you're in an area that's viable, and put a second tarp or second sheet. You've got your tent and your tarp over it. I think that's a fantastic idea. Another tip is paper bowls, paper plates. So you can take your plate and burn it in the fire, and you're not having any rubbish, you're not leaving any rubbish. So another tip that I remember she has in this book is paper plates. I think that's a fantastic idea. You could also use it to help get a fire started if you needed to. And then another tip from that is put your kindling in a egg holder, which is obviously card and very flammable. Put a big pile in it and set that alight. that would certainly get a fire going, a big fire going. So in one of those egg cartons. So that was a third tip, fantastic tip. A fourth tip in it is take a bar of soap instead of a body body shampoo, shower shampoo, or shower lotion or something, which is obviously heavy and cumbersome, and then use like a potato peeler to take bits of the soap and use tiny bits of the soap so it lasts a lot longer when you go on your camp trip. Again, thought that was a fantastic tip. Another tip, number 5, don't go with strangers. Now that might sound like a funny one. It says, you don't know if they're going to turn out to be Psycho himself. But you don't know about people until you go camping with them, because it can bring out the worst in people, especially if it's more towards the survival aspect of camping. Cushy camping where you got tents and beds and sleeping bags, that's one thing. But if you're going out into an area which tests your personality, you don't know what that person is going to seem like or act like or behave like when life isn't so comfortable, and they might turn against you and be actually dangerous if you're in a survival situation. It shows you how hard it is if there's a group of people that get put together randomly in a plane accident and they've got to survive, how important it is to do people management and to work with people that may all have massive different characters and personality clashes. Anyway, tip number 6, sleeping bags. You cannot cheat on a sleeping bag. I agree with this totally. So if you're going to buy camping kit, put your money in a really good tent, in a really good sleeping bag, and a really good sleeping mat. Those are your primary things. And then maybe, well, not maybe, for definite, also a really good rucksack, and then build around that. You don't need to have loads of different bags, loads of different tents like a lot of YouTubers seem to have. Just buy a really good tent, and the main tip is on the sleeping bag, but buy really good quality. If you can't sleep, you're going to be miserable. And if you're camping outside for a trip of multiple days, so let's say a week, unless you're in a motorhome or a really deluxe campsite, you aren't going to sleep. So if you're in the wilderness and you're doing a wilderness trek, you need a really good sleeping bag. Tip number 6, I'm going to link to a video I literally just watched after reading this about I forget the title of the YouTuber, always do, but his channel is absolutely fantastic and he reviews gear all the time and he's really highly rated. He's just done a video on the Neolite Thermo Rest. Now, I've been toying with the idea of buying a real expensive Thermo Rest mat or a mat, an air mat, for ages now, and it's just a matter of having the money to buy it, to be quite frank with you. But I've finally decided I'm probably going to go for what this guy's reviewed, because if he says it's good, it is good. And then in this it says go for a Thermo Rest air mat, because you will never regret it if you do. And then with a sleeping bag and an air mat, you're gonna a good quality air mat that has a decent R value, thermal insulation underneath your body. Then that is going to be a massive bonus in your camping trip. Tip is it 7? Tip number 7. If you can't carry it for 15 minutes without going into a sweat, then it's too heavy. Don't take it. Now, again, this is aimed at people driving to a campsite, so it's not the same thing, but she's put a few bits and pieces in the book for people who are walking into nature. If you're carrying things that are really heavy, like a cast iron frying pan or something, if you are unsure about it, if you're walking out there and you're already knackered after 15 minutes with the weight on your back, forget about it, because what you're carrying is going to be a hazard to you if you're going out into the countryside. What's the next one? Tip number 8. First aid kit. Always have a first aid kit, even if it's a small one. On my last bushcraft video, I've realised and actually reduced the size of my first aid kit because of the weight I was carrying. So I've reduced about half of what my contents were in a first aid kit. The problem with a first aid kit is you need to have certain items to make it a reasonable first aid kit. So it's a matter of deciding in what part of the world you are, where you are, but also, and this is the main tip that from the book, learn first aid. Ironically, I'm studying first aid as one of my life goals is to be very knowledgeable about first aid. So I'm studying first aid at the minute quite in depth. I've done first aid codes throughout the years, and I want to self-educate myself to a deeper level so that it's really there if I need it. So having the knowledge of first aid is extremely important. So that's another tip. Number 8, is it number 8 or number 9? I've lost my position on the tips. What else? Number 9. Biodegradable wipes. If you're using wipes for the toilet to wipe your behind, then use biodegradable ones. Don't leave anything there, alright? Make sure you're really precious about your campsite and make it clean and tidy when you leave. So that's a really, really good tip. Another tip, sleeping socks. Now, you could buy some special ones of some kind. If you look online on Amazon, you can find sleeping socks. I bought some and you've used some quite often now that have a padding, so you can put them on and get out of your sleeping bag to go for a wee in the woods without having to put your shoes on. But her idea of sleeping socks is just basically having socks for bed. Now this is a fantastic idea because you don't want wet socks on when you get into your bed or your sleeping bag. So having some socks specifically just for going to bed in that are knee length, not tiny ones, is a really superb idea. I'll think of a few more before I go. And obviously, take a book. That's another one of the tips. Take a thin book, depending on how long your trip is. Take a book that you can really immerse yourself in, that doesn't depend on the electricity or gadgets of your phone. So if you're using your battery for making YouTube videos, for example, or you've got some films on your phone that you want to use, but you want some other time out or another activity, and you like reading, take a fiction book or take a book you can learn more skills about your camping skills or bushcrafting or whatever it is. So take a book. Now, another tip in this is take a pack of cards. Now, I'm not a personal fan of cards, but she says you can have 50 different games and cards. But obviously, it's knowing those games and having other people to play with if you are going with other people, isn't it? So a pack of cards, playing cards, probably wouldn't be that of interest to me. And then it goes on and on. So there's 301 tips. If you are into your bushcraft, I'm certainly going to try and use some of these tips for the future camping trips. Specifically, I'm going to pick a couple and try and use some of them because I do really rate it. It's books with this kind of little knowledge, only small, but it can make your enjoyment of camping much greater and also allow you to get more out of the experience as well. Not just your knowledge, but your actual personal experience of your camping trips if you love camping and going into the woods like I'm trying to do at the minute. And getting knowledge from people who've got way more experience than you is also a fantastic idea. And I think that is going to be my final tip. There are a ton of tips in there. I've only touched the tip of it. I've only touched the tip of them with what I've told you, but I'm not going to read them all out, obviously. So, is that it? Is that it? So if you've watched this video, give me a like and subscribe to my channel. This is a journey of me reading 1,000 books for my personal development and interest, and hopefully give you good reviews on each book that I read. This book's about a 2-hour, maybe 1 hour to 2 hour read, and I'm gonna give it 2 out of 5 to be honest with you, but it is worth buying. I'm just gonna say that. I'm not gonna explain why 2 out of 5 and it's never 4 out of 5. It's only a tiny book, and while the tips in it are really, really excellent, I'm not going to rate it highly as a book because it's not, it just isn't. Alright, but it's definitely worth buying, even though I'm only giving it a 2 out of 5. So thanks for your time, and I will see you on my next book review. See you later.